justified. Right. 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 Yep. Yep. People don't like to be confronted. Um, and I think people people who don't want to be submissive followers of Jesus hate the light of Jesus. Hate the light. Scared the unseen. Think about that. Right. Yeah. Um, it's such a weird deal because also, at least in our culture, we have a lot of people that don't want to accept it, but yet when something comes along that hurts or is wrong, they want what they don't accept to fix it for them. And then they call us hypocrites. It's just the craziest thing in the world. But that's what living in darkness does, you know. It's like if you're in an avalanche. You're buried in an avalanche. You know what the first thing you're supposed to do? Sit. Why? Find out which way is up. You get covered in that. Or like a pilot flying in fog. If he doesn't have the instrument that shows him if he's flying straight or crooked or something, he'll get lost every time. You can't find your own way. Yes. Yep. Everybody did was writing on that. Yep. Yep. Everybody did their own truth. How'd that work out? So popular to say that kind of stuff. It's just is. Oh my goodness! I thought we had plenty of time. All right, we can run through this. Let's run on. Verse 8, let no debt remain outstanding except for the continuing debt to love one another. Whoever loves one another fulfills the law. The commands, you shall not commit adultery, should not murder, should not steal, you should not covet, and whatever other commandment may be are summed up in this one commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to its neighbor. Therefore, love is a fulfillment of the law. Do you want to know proverbially how to get along in this world? Love your neighbor. I have never had a neighbor I didn't get along with. I've known people who had the worst neighbors in the world. Okay? I've lucked out. Some people are really hard to love. And if you love them, they don't care. But don't be that guy. That's the point. So I got a neighbor, he's not worth being a neighbor to. Well, don't be that guy. Be the guy that folks want to be a neighbor to. Be the guy who cares about your community. Be the guy that cares about what's going on in your street. Be someone who cares about what's happening in kids' school. I'm not saying you can't be involved politically or socially or communally. I'm saying that's not the business of the church as a whole. Our business is to be the best citizens in our community. That's our business. We have, and it's been a long-standing deal. David Lipscomb, for example, believed that you couldn't vote. You couldn't serve in the police department, public office. You couldn't be in the military. Tim through church. with things like school boards or serving in the military or any of those things. I'm not there. I think our job is, if we feel this is where God is leading us, and this is in accordance with His will, if I'm going to be a city councilman, I'm going to be the best Christian city councilman this city has ever seen. If I'm going to be on the school board, or if I'm going to be, I never understood those guys who said that, who said you can't be a policeman, but it's okay to be a school teacher. They're both government employees, and they both have to operate within the boundaries of that. This is the beautiful thing about being a child of God. No matter where you are, you can represent the kingdom of God in a submissive, loving way that does no harm, that changes the dynamics of everything around you. And we have been beaten into the corner by our culture, saying that we're not allowed to express our faith or to even live out our faith if we're not inside this building or at one of our schools or at one of our camps or whatever else. And that's a sad thing. So, why is love the defining characteristic of Christians? Why is that? God is love. There it is. God is love. It is who God is. And we want to be just like Jesus Christ. We want to make and grow followers of Jesus, and we do this by being together with Jesus, by trying to be more like Jesus, and by doing the things Jesus did. There are two words that basically create the concept of God in Christian faith. That's holiness and love. You've got 90% of it all right there in those two words. Why is the concept of neighbor such a big deal in the New Testament? Why is that such a big deal? All right, we've got to love our neighbor. In the New Testament, how has that question changed? Who is my neighbor? And Jesus teaches us that everybody's our neighbor, not just the ones we like, but the ones who are just like us. And so it expands from there. All right. Be imitators of God, Paul says. Beloved children, walk in love, just as Christ loved us and gave Himself for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Submissive living in the world makes God look good. Okay? Last few verses. Oh, we're out of time. Anyway, and do this understanding of the present hour, so on and so forth, salvation is near. And he goes on, put aside the deeds of darkness, put on the armor of light. And let us do so by living in the daytime, not in the darkness, not carousing, drunkenness, so on and so forth. And we just close this. What is the armor of light? The armor of light is love. Okay? It is loving our neighbor, loving our God, loving our purpose, loving our mission, giving ourselves. And we obtain that through sacrificial living in the world. All right, we ran out of time, as always. Thanks for being here. We got like 15 minutes before worship starts, so we have this time just to be together in fellowship. We're dismissed. Hey, what do you want to do when we're done? You want to do another?